Hello guys, this is your friend and we are back with a new fanfic. Which is What If Naruto Unleashed a Forgotten Power in the Forest of Death Part 2. And if you enjoy this fanfic then please press the like button and subscribe to my channel for more fanfic like this. And now let's start the fanfic. Congratulations to all of you. Even if you did not receive the promotion to Chunin, you performed admirably during the invasion, and perhaps a field promotion may come sooner than the next exams, said Hiruzen looking at the genin who competed in the Chunin exams. Only 11 of them were there because Naruto asked for a small sabbatical. He was promoted along with Shikamaru. I'd give Naruto-kun Jonin because he's strong enough, but I have to be sure that strength comes with leadership qualities first, thought Hiruzen before chuckling to himself. Who am I kidding? Naruto-kun will take my chair as soon as he's ready to. I don't know why I bother promoting him. He could have gone genin to Hokage. Hiruzen watched the genin teams pile out of his office during his thoughts. Once they were gone, he turned his head to the window to see Jiraiya. Jiraiya, you're still here. I figured you'd be gone by now. I planned to, but I figured I could stay for a bit longer. I wanted to make sure you're alright, old man. Well, thank you for that. Thankfully, I am in good health. I'm glad to see it. Also, I need to speak with Naruto before I leave. I need to tell him something. Hiruzen raised an eyebrow. You know, the Akatsuki. I think it's time I told him. He'll probably freak out when I do, but the kid needs to know. They'll be coming after him sooner than later. I doubt he'll freak out, thought Hiruzen smiling internally. Jiraiya had no clue who Naruto was these days. I know you trained him for the finals. I'm happy you're finally getting involved in his life. Yeah, he's a good kid already. Now that I'm here, I get to poison him with my tremendous influence over time. It helps that most of my schedule freed up with Rochi's death, said Jiraiya with a smile. Hiruzen nodded and smiled back. I can't believe you went through with it. You have to tell me how you did it. I know it was awesome. I will say that it was awesome. The most impressive thing I've seen in my life. Jiraiya's smile widened. The Sanin's jaw dropped at Hiruzen's following line. I didn't kill Orochimaru. What? I didn't kill Orochimaru. I'm not following you here. You were the one facing Rochi. I was. Then how did what's that? Questioned Jiraiya when Hiruzen handed him something. It was a small piece of black metal. Jiraiya was impressed by the metal's quality. Is this what killed him? Its owner did. Funnel chakra through it, said Hiruzen getting a shrug from Jiraiya. He had no reason not to do so. It's not like Hiruzen was the type to prank someone. I convinced him to tell you. Be sure to thank him for letting you in on his secret. And tell him I said hi. Let who know. A poof of smoke covered Jiraiya. Earlier with Naruto and Tayuya. This is Orochimaru's northern hideout? Questioned Naruto looking at Tayuya. The girl nodded before Naruto sighed. It's a hostile environment, wouldn't you say? You have no idea, Sunflower, said Tayuya blocking a claw with her flute. In front of the two were gray-colored people with abnormal body modifications. These are all rejected copies of this guy named Jugo. Everything here is this. A mindless beast. I know, somewhat. I have Sakin's memories. Naruto stabbed a black through one of the people. Despite this, I feel the need to ask. Is there nothing of note here? Nope. This place sucks. Everyone here has a curse mark and is a shitty throwaway. Other than the original, but he's even more insane, confirmed Tayuya dodging 2 attacks. She landed behind Naruto with her back to him. Not worth it, in my opinion. Alright then, said Naruto sparking with lightning. He was done messing around. Kaminari no Maki, coil of lightning. Tayuya heard thunderclaps and looked at Naruto. Bolts of lightning were snapping off of Naruto's body. The bolts crackled across the landscape, wiping out hordes of their adversaries. One lightning bolt was enough to defeat them. However, each foe was struck by at least 3 in rapid succession. The guy looks like he's barely trying, thought Tayuya watching the casual display of power. The jutsu was altering the landscape. This could wipe out an army if he chose to. Well, it is wiping out an army. They don't have a chance. Once again, nothing here worth anything? Questioned Naruto, getting another nod from Tayuya. Naruto nodded back before ending his lightning attack. Then it's time to leave. Doden. Bunkatsu Shitaji, Earth Style. Splitting Foundation. Naruto placed a palm to the ground, splitting the island in two. Naruto stood and tapped Tayuya to teleport them back atop his airborne Tengu. No need to dilly-dally then. Sweden. Hashoku, Water Style. Wave Erosion. From the split, a massive gush of water spewed out of it. The water rose into a titanic wave over 100 feet tall before gravity took hold. The wave crashed back to the earth with a mighty splash. Tayuya didn't have to look down to know that anything on the island was dead when the water landed. Tayuya could only stare at Naruto. She was scared seeing the bored look on his whiskered face. You are a terrifying boss. How can you do that with no effort? Asked Tayuya looking down. You made an entire island disappear. There's only water. Orochimaru could never do anything on such a scale. I'm terrifying, even when I'm on your side. Especially then. I get to see all the ridiculous shit you can do and live to know someone's walking around capable of said ridiculous shit. I never thought about it like that. I guess that would make me terrifying, said Naruto with a shrug. The island was a part of the ocean and would stay that way forever. Naruto perked up, feeling a familiar chakra. Took him long enough. Chikushodo, Animal Path. Know what, sensei? Questioned Jiraiya before blinking. He was confused to no longer be in the Hokage's office. Gaining his bearings, Jiraiya looked over and spotted Tayuya. Hello. Sup, goofy looking dumbass. Sunflower has been waiting for you. Tayuya waved before taking a seat and playing melodies with her flute. Jiraiya raised an eyebrow at the greeting. She didn't have the answers for how he was here. If she did, she didn't seem like she'd answer anyway. Turning the other way, Jiraiya gasped, seeing the Rinnegan staring back at him. Hey, Jiraiya-sensei. Take a seat. I got a story to tell, said Naruto, getting the gobsmacked man to do so. Jiraiya didn't speak a word while sitting down. Glad you listen. Some would probably fire off questions even though I'm going to tell them anyway. Now where to start? Jiraiya sat wide-eyed, listening to Naruto's rundown on his newfound powers. Jiraiya all but forgot the Akatsuki thing. A few days later. So, this is what Akatsuki can do. This is only Uchiha Itachi. And the others are roughly equivalent, informed Jiraiya, answering Naruto's question. The two stood in the hospital overlooking two bedridden shinobi. Hitaki Kakashi and Uchiha Sasuke laid comatose. He's your teammate's older brother who wiped out the entire Uchiha clan in one night. Yeah, Kakashi-sensei and Sasuke kind of told me. And this guy is after me. Him and at least 6 more. All of whom are on par with one another. Well, that's fun, said Naruto with a sigh. He kept looking at Kakashi and Sasuke before feeling a stare. Naruto turned and saw Jiraiya giving him an expectant look. What? Well, aren't you going to fix them or something magically? Said Jiraiya before getting close and pointing at his eyes. Ya no, Rinnegan magic fix them. It's not magic. And I can't, said Naruto, getting Jiraiya to raise an eyebrow. I can't do anything. Physically, I could probably help, but this is mental. I can't fix that. Yet. Sure. Let's go with that, said Naruto sarcastically, looking back at the two. Is this why Gigi called us back before we were done? He thought I could help. Pretty much. Kakashi is important to the village. We need him back up as soon as possible, said Jiraiya before turning to Sasuke. And that's a kid, tortured by his predicament only to get it thrown in his face again by the very one who put him in it, continued Jiraiya before clapping. Since Naruto couldn't help, this only meant one thing. Road trip time. You were on a road trip, Ero-sensei. Yeah, yours. This one is mine, so I shall be hyped for it. Especially considering who we're going to get, said Jiraiya, patting Naruto on the head. You're coming with me. And side note, where did this pervy sensei thing come from? You're my sensei. And you're a pervert. Arrow. Sensei. Works well. Name one perverted thing I've done in front of you. A nurse walked in before Naruto could answer. Jiraiya looked at her lecherously when she passed him. Hello, nurse babe in the building. Nice little body she's got. Arrow. Sensei. Jiraiya looked down at a smirking Naruto. Oh, come on. That's not even fair. Pipsqueak wait, started then stopped Jiraiya before noticing something. Have you grown? When the Rakudo's chakra melded with my chakra network, its Rinnegan magic made my body adapt to the power it now houses. So, you grew. Yes, and growing still. Neat, replied Jiraiya before turning his attention back to the nurse. She saw him and smiled before walking out. Jiraiya's eyes panned low to admire the woman's physique again. Road trip might need a small delay while I take. Arrow. Sensei. I told you it works well. Quote. Jiraiya shook his head before grabbing Naruto's head with one palm. He walked out with the smaller shinobi. Let's just go. One day later. Tanzaku guy. Why here, sensei? Gambling town, replied Jiraiya coolly while looking at the bustling town. The person we're looking for is an addict. A good starting point, if anything I'd say. Any description you got? 106 centimeters. What? He's only 3.5 feet tall. Questioned Naruto, getting a shake of the head from Jiraiya. We're looking for a woman, Gaki. And no, 106 centimeters, said Jiraiya with a lecherous grin. He brought his hands up like he was cupping an imaginary chest. 106 centimeters. No way, you're lying, said Naruto with rosy cheeks. She was my teammate. If anyone knows, it is me. Teammate. Like the third Sannin. Yep. We're looking for Tsunade Hime. Wow. I might meet all three Sannin in the same month, said Naruto with a smile before closing his eyes. She got chakra like you. I'd say more. Hummed Naruto in reply. Naruto's eyes snapped open before he nodded his head. I think I found her. She's here. Maybe. There aren't many people in the world with chakra as strong as yours. And there's one on the other end of this town. Well, let's go say hi then. Sure, said Naruto, eyes flashing to his Rinnegan before they turned back. Jiraiya and Naruto appeared in a booth with two women and a pig. Hi. The two women freaked out at his being there. Their fright made sense because he wasn't there the instant beforehand. Naruto's eyes panned to one of the woman's chests. Arrow sensei wasn't lying. 106 centimeters. The blonde woman, Tsunade, had a saucer in her hand with sake in it. She looked at Naruto before shrugging. She downed the sake in a quick gulp. Allowing the burn to subside, she opened her brown eyes to the equally confused white-haired man before her. So, Jiraiya, 2 questions. Why are you here? Questioned Tsunade before pointing at Naruto. And who's the kid who can't keep his eyes off my chest? Ha! Real subtle entrance, kid, said Jiraiya sheepishly, laughing to hide his nerves. Jiraiya coughed in his hand, seeing the unamused look on Tsunade's face. Guess he needed to get down to business. Hey, Hime, you look as good as ever. Sadly, this isn't a personal visit. Konoha needs your help. Tsunade raised an eyebrow. Konoha needed her help. She could humor this, at least. She still had alcohol to finish anyway, and she couldn't find a reason not to listen. It would probably be a good laugh finding out whatever that bastard of a village wanted from her. Konoha. Tayuya was angry. Sunflower. Correction, Tayuya was angry at Naruto. Stomping around in a huff, Tayuya mimicked the Kyuubi Jinchuriki's last words to her. Don't worry Tayuya-san, I'll be back soon. Tayuya grumbled a few swears before looking at the calendar. It's been a whole day, and he hasn't come back. What the did he mean by soon? Usually, Tayuya wouldn't care because things like that didn't matter too much. She was an independent young lady. She didn't need the company. Honestly, she preferred isolation unless someone forced the isolation. That whisker-having, pipsqueak cherub-faced idiot knows I can't go out in Konoha. He's my alibi and hasn't told anyone anything yet. Screamed Yuya walking to the kitchen. She slammed open Naruto's pantry and nearly lost it. I'm so hungry, and all he has are these ramen cups. I hate him so much. Stupid asshole. Yuya slammed the pantry shut before deciding to go to sleep. She refused to eat ramen from a cup, so sleep to settle her stomach was the only answer. Looking at the couch she slept on last night, Yuya turned to Naruto's room. Yep, I'm sleeping in there, said Yuya walking over to and kicking open Naruto's door. She spotted his bed and frowned at how small it was. Well, I guess he is a shrimp, so it's probably huge to him. PFF'd. This shit would barely fit a toddler. It was a bed. And a bed was better than the couch, so Yuya plopped down on it. When she did, she couldn't believe how wonderful it felt. Wait. Why is his bed so comfortable? It's perfect. Trailed off Yuya, melting into the wondrous feel of Naruto's bed. She didn't remember being angry at Naruto or hungry. All she knew was Naruto's bed. I could be here forever. Why is this thing so comfy? And like that, Yuya found herself asleep. She'd probably be angrier and hungrier when she awoke later. For now, she'd enjoy the most fantastic sleep she ever had in her entire life. Tanzaku guy. I don't think this is such a good idea. You should have told that to your brat before he called me a disappointment, huffed Tsunade, making her way outside. Lil brat doesn't even know who I am. He knows who you are, informed Jiraiya, trying to halt Tsunade. A fight with Naruto was one she didn't need to start. You don't know who he is, and that's why I worry. I don't even think I could. Shut up, Jiraiya. He's a kid. A stupid one at that who's about to learn a hard lesson, said Tsunade, walking outside to see Naruto waiting for her. If you want to apologize, you can. It won't stop this beatdown, but I might let you keep all of your limbs if you do. I wasn't out to fight you, lady, but you were wasting mine and Ero-sensei's time, said Naruto with narrowed blue eyes. We have other options outside of you. Tsunade was taken aback by the look in Naruto's eyes. For some reason, it felt like his glare could paralyze her if she weren't as strong as she is. Despite that line of thinking at first, Tsunade disregarded it entirely and smirked before holding up one finger. You're arrogant. Not my cup of tea. I'll probably only need one finger to beat someone like you, said Tsunade, not seeing Jiraiya smack his face at such a thing. The irony of calling Naruto arrogant and then handicapping herself to a single finger flew right over the medic's head. Tsunade made a come hither motion with that finger. Come and learn your lesson, brat. Sensei, said Naruto, looking at Jiraiya. No, she's asking for it. I won't even. No, might be a pain sometimes, but she's still my teammate. There was no way in hell he was going to let Naruto use any of his freakishly powerful Rinnegan abilities. He'd witnessed Naruto sack several Odo hideouts with no effort after the kid summoned him. The kid dishearteningly stated he didn't get to show the most dangerous aspect of his eyes before Hiruzen called them back. Tsunade, bless her soul, was rightfully dubbed the strongest woman in the world. However, Jiraiya could see the rust on her. She would be no challenge to Naruto, even without his Rinnegan. So no Rinnegan for Naruto, even though he'd probably bring it out anyway to firmly show up his teammate. If you don't come to me, I'm coming to you. And that's the last thing you would want, said Tsunade, smirk still on her face. Jiraiya shook his head again and put his hands over his face. Shizune looked at the white-haired Sannin with a curious gaze. Naruto was a newly promoted Chunin, and Tsunade was Tsunade. Shizune saw no other outcome but her master's victory. Tsunade did too. If you let me start this fight, I promise it will be over in an instant. Yeah, said Naruto, standing in front of Tsunade. Holding on to her promise, Tsunade moved one finger in front of his fist and stopped it easily. The blonde woman was surprised at his speed and saw his fist headed for her chin. Naruto's eyebrow rose at the casual way she stopped his punch. Your chakra control is this fine-tuned. You can augment your strength to absurd levels. The dedication to one's chakra control to such an extreme degree. He could see why she was so lauded off that ability alone. I'm impressed. 5 Narutos phased into existence, getting Tsunade's eyes to widen. There was no hand seal, no poof of smoke, or any indication Naruto was using a jutsu. The clones spawned and kicked the Sannin into the air. Tsunade cringed at the perfectly placed kicks. He admires my chakra control. His chakra control is crazy too. He can use that high-level jutsu with no hand seal. Thought Tsunade, frantically shifting her body in the air. The 5 clones had jumped to meet her. She landed before 10 more Narutos spawned around her. As if I'd let that happen again. Tsunade rose her finger before dropping and thrusting it into the ground. The ground exploded in a spiderweb crack, upturning pieces of earth that shook the area violently. Tsunade dispelled the gaggle of Narutos with ease. Dust clouded the area from her attack. The clone Narutos were gone. The original stood looking at her like he had been since the earlier shadow clones. Tsunade then noticed the dust in the air was blowing toward her gently. Naruto was using a low-powered wind tunnel that practically outlined her. What is the point of this small breeze? Thought Tsunade, unaffected by the slight wind flowing through the area. All he did was clear the air of the dust and debris. Outside of that, he wasn't doing anything. Wait, is his chest puffed out? Hai no Maki, coil of fire, thought Naruto, exhaling a blast of red-hot fire. Thanks to the wind tunnel he'd created, Naruto's flames were concentrated and kept from spreading out like usual to avoid damaging the buildings lining the street. He wasn't Tsunade. Naruto refused to do collateral damage when facing someone unless necessary. What the hell is this kid? Thought Tsunade, ducking down and picking up a piece of earth to protect herself. She began to sweat lightly at the heat flowing around the piece of earth that shielded her. The female Sannin felt like she was cooking in a furnace. Someone his age shouldn't be capable of ninjutsu like this. It's over. Tsunade's eyes widened, and she turned to see Naruto there with his arms folded. His fire jutsu still blazed on around them. He was avoiding it thanks to the rock she put up. Tsunade was prepped to defend until she sunk into the ground. Tsunade's legs were in the ground up to her knees before a series of spears rose. The spears stuck her torso in place awkwardly. As I said, there are other ways to help my teammates than you, said Naruto with the same cold eyes he had at the beginning. Arms still crossed, Naruto looked down at the very gifted medic Nin. His eyes softened before he spoke again. Ero-sensei said it. I know about you. It sucks that your lover and baby brother died fighting for Konoha. I can't understand the pain you went through, continued Naruto before his eyes hardened. But someone else's lover, baby brother, father, mother, sister, etc. died in the wake of your absence and forfeiture on life as a kunoichi. You could have possibly saved them and many more to keep someone else from the same heartbreak you feel. But you didn't and won't. That's why I said you're a disappointment. You could do so much where others can't and wish they could. Tsunade sat wide-eyed and forcibly stuck listening to the words of the Jinchuriki. He was 13, yet speaking like he'd lived a life full of strife. If only she knew that he had, in a sense. Tsunade didn't know, and even if she did, the woman wouldn't care anyway. Her pain was unique to her, and who was he to tell her how to deal with it? This was the reason she was a disappointment to him. Because she wouldn't fix every little boo-boo that befalls or befell someone from her grandfather's village. Give her a break. Oi, you damned whiskered brat, said Tsunade, getting Naruto to raise an eyebrow. The earthly prison began to crack. The look on the Sannin's face shifted to one of anger. It's somehow my fault that Sarutobi didn't listen to me when I said we needed more medics. It's somehow my fault there is no one else in the entire world that can help your hurt friends outside of me. It's my fault I wasn't good enough to save my own family with my power, and now when someone else faces my reality, I'm supposed to help them when no one was there to help me. Naruto watched the woman forcibly tear through his jutsu while she spoke and stood to look at him with fierce brown eyes. Tsunade didn't wait long for an answer when she saw the same brutally cold eyes still looking at her. She kept her earlier promise despite her anger-fueled attack. She led with her pointer finger, which could level a building. Sadly, yes, you can't help, you were endowed with great power, said Naruto, shifting his head left of Tsunade's finger before his Rinnegan shifted on. A sharp and crisp left-right of chakra-fueled fingers to the stomach dropped Tsunade to her knees, parallel with Naruto. I believe those endowed with great power shouldn't run from moments where they can do good in this troublesome world. Continued Naruto before lashing out with an elbow to Tsunade's temple. He stopped an inch from leveling the legendary medic. Her pigtails blew from the force gathered. The elbow wouldn't demolish a building, but it would have put Tsunade through the building next to them. I promise you I won't, so that one day I can save someone's loved one or maybe their baby brother. Because if everyone thought like you, no one would save anyone. You have to break the cycle to keep it from repeating, don't ya think? It's what I think. Wow, nice words, thought Jiraiya with a smile. Shizune stood with her jaw dropped at her master getting bested by a kid. Jiraiya noticed it before shifting focus back to Naruto. Finish strong. You got her on the ropes. After hearing Naruto, Tsunade stared forward, hand on her stomach, and didn't move for a few seconds. The pain in her abdomen was all but forgotten listening to Naruto's words. Naruto smiled cheekily and rose both arms to the sky with balled fists. My dream is to become Hokage. And I'd gladly give my life if it meant saving one person or the entire village, spoke Naruto, bringing his arms down and nodding to affirm it to himself. This I promise, Dadbeo. And like that, Tsunade had two memories flash through her head. The first of her younger brother, Nawaki, and the second of her lover, Dan. The two very important people in her life who died too early that both shared Naruto's dream. She could see the two of them smiling at her, and right between them stood Naruto. A tear fell down Tsunade's eye, and not because of the mighty blows she took. It fell due to the thoughts running through her head. Naruto kneeled next to her and tapped her stomach twice. Both in the spots of her chakra gates. Sorry about the last hits. They hurt more than usual since I closed 2 chakra gates when I poked you, said Naruto, reopening the 2 gates with pulses of chakra. You should start to feel your chakra flow naturally once again. I'm certain you can deal with the pain yourself, right? I mean, you are the greatest medic in the world. Tsunade turned her teary eyes to Naruto to see his Rinnegan in place of his blue ones. Somehow, despite the emotionless appearance of the eyes, Naruto managed to shine some warmth through them while matching the medic's gaze. Tsunade was physically rusty, but mentally, she retained knowledge as well as she did in her prime. She knew what she was looking at. Rinnegan. He has the same eyes as the Sage of Six Paths. Naruto probably showed her them to drive home his point about being endowed with great power and choosing to do the right thing with it. And probably to make her feel better about the loss she took. She needed the latter because losing to a fresh Chunin would hurt her reputation and pride tremendously. She needed to train again because she wouldn't go down like this next time. So fascinated about the eyes, Tsunade nearly missed what was behind Naruto. Naruto. Look out. Someone managed to sneak up on me. Thought Naruto, turning to see a volley of shuriken flying his way. Choosing to dodge with Tsunade, Naruto froze, noticing something alarming thanks to his visual prowess. There's shuriken in the shadows of these. No escape. Seiatsu, subjugating pressure, Naruto formed a gravity wall around him and Tsunade that deflected the shuriken. Naruto quickly moved from behind Tsunade, who impressively managed to get him out of harm's way, before he looked up at the red eyes of the man behind the shuriken. Uchiha Itachi. Hello, Naruto-kun, spoke Itachi monotonously, wondering how his shurikens were stopped. Itachi considered a wind jutsu of some sort before seeing Naruto's eyes. He has the Rinnegan. This is over, said Naruto, teleporting behind Itachi. A phantasm of Naruto could be seen ghosting toward the Akatsuki member. Naruto moved to attack before stopping. Genjutsu, that fast? I didn't even notice. The Itachi before Naruto dissolved in a flock of crows. Naruto was amazed at the speed. Itachi must have gotten him when they first met eyes for the second before Naruto teleported behind him. Then, he had the foresight not to pass go and collect $200 by hightailing it out of there immediately because Naruto couldn't feel him anymore. Snuck up on him and threw an inescapable volley of shuriken, trapped him in a genjutsu, and managed to leave without Naruto being able to follow. He's good, really good, said Naruto with a small smile. I'll be better prepared next time. The same as you Akatsuki will be, I'm sure. With Itachi. Itachi, what the hell happened? Questioned a large man that ran beside Itachi with blue skin. He had the same beady eyes of the hologram that spoke to Itachi less than a week ago. You said you were going to start the attack, and I'd come in later. Did you change your mind? Tsunade and Jiraiya couldn't handle both of us. I know that. You were right. We likely could best Tsunade-sama and Jiraiya-sama in battle. So, why didn't we? Pipsqueak would have been easy pickings afterward. Naruto-kun is the sole reason we're fleeing, Kisame, said Itachi, saying Pipsqueak's name, unlike his partner. Sensing his partner's next question, Itachi answered it. Naruto-kun's Biju isn't the problem. He has the Rinnegan. Kisame's eyes widened, and he was quick to no longer question Itachi's idea to leave. Naruto having the Rinnegan ended the discussion right there. The Kyuubi Jinchuriki has the same eyes as the leader of Akatsuki. It would be fun sharing that with the rest of the group later. You think we could have taken him? Questioned Kisame after a moment. Whether we could take him or not remains unknown, spoke Itachi, still sprinting away. Naruto was young and not as strong as he could be given time to grow. Now was probably their best chance to beat Naruto in battle. Except, his current entourage made even that task already tricky to accomplish. Our main objective was to update our information on him, capture if possible. I didn't want to run the risk of facing two Sannin and a Jinchuriki with the Rinnegan. Capturing him at that time didn't seem doable. Yeah, you're probably right, spoke Kisame before a shark-like grin crossed his face. Just hope we can catch him alone soon. I've always wanted to see what the eyes of the Sage of Six Paths could do. No, you don't. Even I don't wish to. The shark man looked at the Uchiha briefly and thought about it. Itachi was someone he knew that if he faced, he'd likely not come out of the battle alive. And for Itachi to say that about someone else really put it in perspective. It wasn't fear that he could feel come from Itachi. There was only respect. A healthy amount of respect. I should probably listen to the guy. He knows more about special eyes than I do. And with that thought, the two of them ran in silence until they could reach an area to contact their organization. Something troubling had occurred. One day later, with Naruto walking along the path back to Konoha with Tsunade and Shizune in tow, Naruto and Jiraiya walked next to each other while a repeated thwap could be heard. The cause of these thwaps was due to Jiraiya smacking Naruto with a rolled-up newspaper every few yards. Naruto had an angrier look each time Jiraiya hit his head. What did I say? No Rinnegan. And what did you do? Used Rinnegan. Thwap. And guess what happened? Akatsuki saw it. And why is that bad? They'll prepare. Thwap. What did I say? No Rinnegan. And what did you do? Used Rinnegan, repeated Naruto before his Rinnegan came to life. He halted Jiraiya's next smack with his gravity powers. Turning to his sensei, the tomo in his eyes spun dangerously. Hit me again, and I'm ripping your soul out of your body and keeping it in the king of hell until we get back home. Quote. Jiraiya raised an eyebrow and opened his eyes at his student's threat. Turning to hold the boy's gaze, Jiraiya was curious. You can't do that, can you? Hit me again, and you'll find out. Jiraiya kept looking at Naruto for several more steps before shrugging. Even though he believed Naruto could do something like that, he felt the need to call the boy's bluff. Village destroying ninjutsu. Sure. Jiraiya had seen it. Was he ripping out souls? PFF'd. No way the kid could do it until proven. And Jiraiya wanted proof. Thus, the newspaper descended and smacked the boy for the 20th time in the past 5 minutes. Thwap. That's it, shouted Naruto, slapping a palm to Jiraiya before ripping the man's soul out. The king of hell rose beside the angry Jinchuriki before he tossed the soul inside its mouth. Chikushodo, animal path. A sealing array appeared underneath the falling husk that was Jiraiya's soulless body. A human-sized turtle with the head of a lion appeared and caught Jiraiya's body before beginning to walk toward Konoha. Naruto turned his Rinnegan off before turning to the other two walking with him. So, what were we talking about before Ero-sensei did that? Oh yeah, your pet pig's name is Tauntaun. How did you all come up with her name? Naruto finally realized that Tsunade and Shizune had stopped walking. The two stood with very wide eyes. Naruto looked at them curiously. Why did they stop? He couldn't feel anything around them that could cause such a thing. Did you just started, then stopped Tsunade twice, shakily pointing a finger at the turtle carrying Jiraiya. Maybe that was a bit overboard, thought Naruto with a sigh. He thought maybe warning Jiraiya would make what he did less shocking, but he'd taken a man's soul out. No one could carry on a normal conversation after that. Meifu no O, King of Hell. The head of Hell's king rose once more before it looked at the husk of Jiraiya and spat his soul back in his body. Jiraiya awoke with a jolt before the King of Hell descended again, and Naruto sighed. I shouldn't abuse my powers. I'm sorry. Jiraiya was touching his body to make sure he was alive. He felt like he'd died for eternity but no time at all. It was a weird way to explain it. He felt he'd been gone forever and somehow knew he hadn't been gone long at all. Jiraiya turned his eyes to the lion turtle he was riding on, then to the two wide-eyed medics that had been walking with them, and lastly landed on his student who stared at him with a sorry written on his face. Jiraiya coughed before standing and walking over to Naruto. Kid, you're amazing, you know that. Seriously, that's the craziest thing I've ever felt or seen, spoke Jiraiya earnestly, standing in front of Naruto, getting the Chunin to beam at the compliment. The man smiled too before smacking him once more with his rolled-up newspaper. After destroying a few trees, the smack sent his young charge out of sight. You ever rip my soul out again, I'll kick your little. Ya hear me, brat? Naruto's summoning growled before launching a blast of some red substance at the Sannin. Jiraiya avoided the attack and looked to see that it was red clay. Weird, but Jiraiya didn't care. His hair grew before wrapping up the turtle-lion hybrid. Crunching it, the animal snarled before dispelling. Jiraiya's hair returned to normal before the forest exploded. Stop hitting me with that newspaper, shouted Naruto in a 20-foot circumference of bare land, having used his gravity powers to clear a path. His Rinnegan's Tomo were spinning dangerously. I've already beaten 2 of you 3. It was only a matter of time I faced the 3rd Sannin. Bring it on. Rinnegan or not, you're still decades too early to beat me. Tsunade and Shizune stood out of harm's way while the student and teacher had a go at it. Jiraiya was losing because Naruto was too strong even in their half-hearted fight. The Toad Sage's will was strong. He continued getting in smacks atop Naruto's head with his newspaper any time he could. Naruto hit him with a different element each time he managed to do so. It was simply marveling what Naruto could do, but, in this pissing contest, it only served to bore Tsunade and Shizune. I'm not healing you if you're hurt too badly, informed Tsunade while Shizune nodded to confirm she felt the same way. Ha, you'll have to heal up like normal after this whipping, shouted Jiraiya, smacking Naruto again during the break. I was talking about you, idiot, said Tsunade watching Jiraiya dodge a fireball before jumping at Naruto and grappling with him. The grapple turned into a headlock. Jiraiya continued smacking Naruto atop his head. Naruto shocked him with each blow, but Jiraiya never relented. Should we just keep going to Konoha? This doesn't look like it'll end any time soon. Yes, Tsunade-sama, we should get going. We might void Hokage-sama's payment if the two we are supposed to help come to before we get there, replied Shizune, shaking her head at the two's fighting. Only an hour out from Konoha too. Boys will be boys. And with that, the two medics walked past the scuffle and continued on their way to the Leaf Village. Jiraiya and Naruto's fight ended once the two were out of sight. Jiraiya, horribly singed and roughed up, held up Naruto, sporting only a knot on the back of his head from the newspaper. It seems like they forgot about the whole soul-ripping thing. Yeah, that's good, at least. Would have sucked to explain, said Naruto, getting set down by Jiraiya. They'll still probably ask. I'd rather answer in Konoha and not still on this road. I miss my bed. More importantly, Kakashi-sensei and Sasuke need their help. Agreed, nodded Jiraiya before looking back at Naruto. Any way you can send me back in that thing. No whipping will come. I saw a war babe I beat and killed that gave me the look. I'd like to see what that was about if you catch my drift. What? Send me back to that hell thingy. I know you heard me. I did. I hoped you were just kidding, informed Naruto before seeing Jiraiya was dead serious. He willingly wanted to go to hell. Something was wrong with his sensei. No, why would you want to go back there? It's purgatory. I just told you why, dumbass. War babe was giving me the Lu, K. Repeated Jiraiya, getting Naruto to frown and shake his head no. Jiraiya dropped his shoulders in defeat. He wouldn't get to see the beauty once more. The Sannin looked at the newspaper in his hand and then at the knot on Naruto's head. A sly grin grew on the man's face. He back once more. Thwap. That's it. And thus, Jiraiya was once again sent to hell by his young charge. This time, happily for the most part. Naruto grumbled lowly to himself and carried the soulless body of the Sannin back to Konoha. Wait, why am I walking? And with that thought, Naruto vanished the short distance back home. It was quiet, much too quiet for how many eccentric personalities stood in the same room. The Akatsuki had assembled. Due to Itachi's information, no one spoke a word. The Kyuubi Jinchuriki had the Rinnegan. The strongest Biju resided in the boy's body. Now, he had the eyes of the Sage of Six Paths to go along with it. The leader of Akatsuki, Pain, stood in his hologram form digesting the information. The man's Rinnegan shined in the dark meeting place. The Kyuubi Jinchuriki has the Rinnegan. What the? Pain closed his eyes in annoyance. He knew it was bound to happen. 2 minutes of silence followed Itachi's announcement. It was only a matter of time until someone verbally panicked about the troubling news. And it was troubling news. Anyone there would be a fool not to think of it as such. However, one had to keep the flow going despite such obstacles. The buck fell to Pain as the group's leader. Hidan, calm down, said Pain while opening his eyes to look at the man. Unlike him and the other 7 members, Hidan was physically there and his partner, Kakuzu. It is something to worry about later. Luckily, we're able to worry about it. It could have gone much worse if we didn't know at all. Good job, Itachi and Kisame. Pain watched Hidan calm down. The leader nodded before continuing. We will worry about the Kyuubi later. I will be the one to face him when the time comes. Everyone else will steer clear of him from this point forward. Despite Naruto's age, the Rinnegan was not to be downplayed. It was why everyone respected Pain. He knew that Naruto was easily as strong as he was at that age. However, Naruto contained the Kyuubi. Terrifying, but Pain would handle the Jinchuriki. He was likely the only one who could. For now, we will seal the Nanabi. The group nodded and got prepared. An unconscious girl was lying on the floor in the midst of them. She was the first Jinchuriki they'd caught. 1 down, 8 to go. Konoha. Sarutobi Hirswin sat at his desk rummaging through document after document. The tedious paperwork he'd done for the better part of his adult life. Being Hokage didn't make him the leader of Konoha's shinobi only. No, he was the overseer of all that sat within Konoha's walls. It was weird to think about, but he was practically a benevolent dictator. The buck stopped at him as far as Konoha things were concerned. Because of this, his shinobi brought most matters to him directly. Hi, Naruto-kun. Arriving in an instant, Naruto smiled at the older man. You figured out how my teleportation works. You showed it to me a few times. It wasn't that hard to break down, said the Kage with a smile. He put down his pen to look at his favorite shinobi. The Kage rose an eyebrow seeing Jiraiya on the younger shinobi's back. I may be worrying for no reason, but is Jiraiya dead? Oh right, I stole his soul. The King of Hell rose and returned Jiraiya's soul once more. Aha, what, who, where? Questioned Jiraiya hysterically before noticing where he was. Jiraiya grinned before standing up off of Naruto. Thanks for the ride, kid. Whatever, said Naruto before looking at Hiruzen. Seeing the Kage's wide eyes, Naruto sighed. I'm not explaining this. You tell him what happened since you're the leader anyway. I have my other mission to finish. Hiruzen remembered what Naruto was doing before this whole Akatsuki, search for Tsunade thing. Naruto smiled, seeing Hiruzen's nod. Chikushoto, animal path. A ceiling array spawned next to Naruto. A poof of smoke rose a moment later. The wonder of what Naruto summoned was solved before the smoke dissipated. Damn it, Sunflower. I was sleeping. Stop doing that. Ah, Tayuya, of course. Tayuya turned when she heard Jiraiya speak. Who better to destroy Oto than one of its shinobi? Hey, perverted dumbass. Jiraiya frowned at the nickname. The kid picked a pretty one at least. The vulgarity is a little much, thought Jiraiya watching Tayuya return to berating Naruto. Like his dad, he probably enjoys it. Kushina was nicer to me. I missed you too. I didn't say I missed you, idiot. I don't like you. You don't mean that. If you did, you'd take out those earrings that allow me to summon you, said Naruto tapping Tayuya's shoulder chidingly. She growled before Naruto turned to Hiruzen. Ero-sensei will fill you in, Gigi. I'm going to go finish what I started before they try to scatter too far. Naruto looked back at Tayuya again. She was wearing sleepwear. She looked hot, but her clothes weren't battle attire. We'll leave after my travel buddy gets dressed. I can't have her fighting in risk. Ah, Naruto cringed, hearing the shout in his mind. His sudden movement alerted the three surrounding him. Tayuya was the first to ask him what was wrong. At least she would have if Naruto didn't drown the area in killing intent. Tayuya froze when she saw the livid look on Naruto's face. He took a calming breath that made the killing intent disappear. Tayuya exhaled, not realizing she'd been holding her breath, before putting a hand to her chest. That was that. You gave me a heart attack. Naruto took another calming breath before answering the kunoichi. Chome is in trouble, said Naruto before building chakra. He clenched his fists angrily. I'll be back shortly. Wait, who's Chome? The Nanabi. Jiraiya's eyes widened at the admission. Hiruzen and Tayuya were equally as shocked as the Sannin. Could Naruto feel the Seven Tails was in trouble? Well, if the boy needed help, Jiraiya would offer his assistance. Naruto noticed Jiraiya's willingness and shook his head. The distance is too far. I can't teleport anyone else that length of a distance. 3 Tomo vanished from each eye. A tear of blood ran down his cheek before the Jinchuriki disappeared. Shunken Ito, instant transmission, said Naruto reappearing in a cave. Naruto heard gasps the moment he arrived. Naruto looked up to see holograms and 2 men looking at him. A girl was levitating in the air as well. Several ghastly chakra dragons were running through her body. Chome-chan, I'm here. Naruto mentally saw the Biju screaming in agony. Naruto turned to the only person that mattered at the moment. The man with the same eyes as he. I'm guessing you're the leader of Akatsuki. Kyubi Jinchuriki. You've come. The two stared at each other. The tension in the air was thick. Nanabe Jinchuriki mindscape. The feeling was indescribable. There was no way to describe how she felt. If someone forced the Nanabe Jinchuriki to explain what she felt, she'd say, "I don't know," thought the girl, unable to describe what happened to her. It was indescribable. She remembered getting torn apart by two guys in black cloaks with red clouds. And then that feeling came. What happened to me? The Nanabe Jinchuriki was a young girl around 14 years of age. Her short, layered mint green hair had an orange clip that matched her currently closed orange eyes. She wore a short sleeveless white midriff shirt with fishnet armor underneath, long white armlets, and fishnet shorts with a short white apron skirt over it. There was a red, cylindrical object on her back, and overall, her appearance was somewhat worn. Blood, bruises, and cuts littered her body and clothes. "I think she's waking up Chome-chan." The girl's eyes opened at the voice. A boy with blonde hair and a warm expression on his face stood in front of her. "Hi, my name is Uzumaki Naruto, Chunin Shinobi of Konoha. May I have your name?" The girl stared blankly at Naruto with a bewildered expression. The lack of response got Naruto to open his eyes. His Rinnegan elicited a gasp from her. Please, stay away from me. I don't know what I did," shouted the girl, frantically trying to scramble away. Naruto tilted his head curiously at her. She hurried back until she hit something solid. "Nanabe. Hi Fu," spoke the seven-tailed beast. The Nanabe was a giant rhinoceros beetle. Unlike the Ikibi and Kyubi, 6 of its tails were wings. The 7th flowed out of its abdomen like a proper tail. "You can trust this boy. He's here to save you and me." Fu's eyes widened before she turned back to Naruto. His warm expression had returned. Fu was cautious, but she could be courteous. Her Biju didn't seem wary of the boy before them. "My name is Fu. I guess Nanabe already said it." Chome. The Nanabe. "Its name is Chome," said Naruto looking at the Biju. It fluttered its wings happily at him. "You were abducted by a group called Akatsuki. They're after the Biju, like Chome-chan, for nefarious purposes, I presume." Naruto offered the girl a hand up while he continued speaking. "To do that, they must first extract your Biju from you. This removal would kill you." Fu's eyes widened even further. Was she dead? Or was she dying? She remembered getting taken. "No, you're not dead or dying." "Well, you're dying, but that's not relevant to this Akatsuki situation." Naruto laughed at the random existentialism. Now wasn't the time. "Anywho, I got here with plenty of time to spare. You and Chome-chan will be fine," said Naruto with a smile. Fu managed a small smile in return. "You're safe and very alive. This makes sense. If I were dead, I wouldn't be able to feel anything, right? I feel my injuries," thought Fu, accepting Naruto's hand up. She found out he was shorter than her by a few centimeters. Somehow, she didn't feel taller. "He's so strong. It makes me feel tiny. I'm glad you're awake. It means it's working." "What's working?" "My saving you." "Saving me?" questioned Fu, looking around. She saw nothing outside of Naruto and Chome. She couldn't feel that earlier feeling, but Naruto was only talking. "How are you saving me when you're here? You've done nothing besides talk. This is a plane that Jinchuriki can venture to when fully connected to their Biju. A separate consciousness that exists solely for the Biju. You aren't connected to Chome, but I have my ways of bypassing certain rules." There was no doubt his Rinnegan was the catalyst. Naruto nodded before slowly disappearing. "I'm about to speak with Akatsuki now. I'll be back soon. You should talk to Chome-chan. She's been wanting to talk with you for a long time." Naruto's body disappeared completely. He had some business to handle. Naruto versus Akatsuki. He's using Gakido to absorb my Genryu Kyufujin, Phantom Dragon's 9 consuming seals, thought Pain, unable to stop the Kyubi Jinchuriki. Pain's face remained stoic. He knew there was no use crying over spilled milk. "How did you attain the Rinnegan?" "They were given to me. The same as you." However, my eyes are better integrated, said Naruto, no longer apprehensive of the man. He has the Rinnegan, but those eyes aren't his organically. He can't use them to their full power. Otherwise, he would have been able to stop me, thought Naruto while the other holograms in the room began to disappear. Maybe he spoke information he wasn't supposed to. Naruto didn't want the leader to disappear yet. Who are you? And why are you trying to take the Biju? My name is Pain. My collecting of the Biju is to bring peace to this world. Is that so? Questioned Naruto before the Tomo in his eyes spun. In an unknown and dark location, a man sat within some sort of machine. He had red hair, and his eyes were the Rinnegan. The same eyes as the hologram in the cave. He rose an eyebrow when a hologram of Naruto appeared. This is the real you. I see you can use the paths properly. I went to the orange-haired one first before getting here, said Naruto while looking around. He couldn't gauge where he was, but it didn't matter. He was here for one reason. He turned a chilling glare to the redhead. You try to take another Biju, I will find you. And I will kill you. The man before Naruto didn't react at all. A few seconds went by before he nodded. Understood, Kyubi. Please, allow me to reciprocate, spoke the man calmly. I will find you soon, Kyubi. Your Biju will be mine. Only after I show you the power of a true god. Unlike the majority of the Akatsuki, two of the members were physically in the cave. The one with slicked back silver hair came charging at Naruto with a maniacal grin on his face. There was a wicked-looking, tri-bladed scythe in his hands. Naruto held Pain's gaze despite the attack. Look alive there, Kyubi! Shouted the man swinging at Naruto. The scythe got a centimeter from digging into Naruto before stopping inexplicably. What the fuck? Remember my words, Pain, said Naruto turning back to the hologram. Pain didn't wait to see what Naruto would do to his subordinates. The giant statue he stood on disappeared as well. A figure Naruto knew. Pain summoned the Geto Mazo and synced with it. I can't take it without physically disrupting his connection to it, thought Naruto before letting it go for now. He returned his attention to the man frozen by his gravity powers. You shouldn't have followed him. I don't follow him, said the man with a snort. A gleeful grin came to his face before he closed his eyes. I only follow Jashin-sama's will. Jashin. Naruto released a potent seiyatsu with his outburst. The only piece of land unaffected within a square kilometer was Naruto's spot holding Fu. Everything else was crushed and thrown haphazardly outward by a blast of gravity. Naruto took a calming breath. He knew who Jashin was from Hagoromo's memories. Chikushoto, said Naruto summoning his lion-turtle hybrid. He set Fu gently atop its back. Afterward, he turned in the direction of the follower of Jashin. I can't allow you to live past this day. Not following that religion, if it can even be called that. That fucking hurt you, brat! Shouted the man furiously. He stood groggily out of the rubble. Naruto threw him under with gravity. He turned and spotted Naruto half a kilometer away. Naruto couldn't hear him, but it didn't stop his yelling. I'm going to torture you. I don't give a fuck that you're the Kyubi. You're dying. Shin Shun Goku Satsu, true instant hell murder. The Akatsuki member blinked, seeing Naruto ghost toward him. He grinned at the slow gait the boy was taking. He ready to swing before blinding pain hit him. A noiseless scream erupted from the man's mouth before his body disintegrated slowly into nothingness. Hi Hidan, stammered out the other member of Akatsuki. He'd recovered from Naruto's gravity blast and watched the entire process. He phased through Hidan and made him vanish. He didn't even touch him. What happened? Thought the man in a panic. Naruto was visibly winded after his technique. He looked like he could barely stand. I have to take a chance. It might be the only way I survive. Kaden. Zukoku, fire style. Intelligent hard work. Futon. Atsugai, wind style. Pressure damage. Two figures, composed of black threads entirely, burst from the back of the man's Akatsuki cloak. One of the figures wore a mask with red markings. The other donned a mask with dark blue markings. The former brewed a fire jutsu while the latter conjured a wind jutsu. The attacks combined into a hellacious torrent of fire. The man waited to see the results of his attack. His heart sank when he noticed Naruto absorbing it. There was a blue, near invisible shield around his entire body. The fire torrent was being sucked in like a vacuum. Just like with those dragons. He can absorb chakra, thought the man before blinking to see Naruto stand before him with a palm tapping his chest. Shunshin. That fast? No, teleportation, informed Naruto, getting backhanded across the face. This guy was pretty good to react quickly, but sadly, it only turned Naruto's head. Shirato. You should have run instead of staying, spoke Naruto, augmenting his body substantially to withstand the powerful blow from the Akatsuki member. Glad he did, since the strike was enhanced by earth release and could have done some damage to him. Before I kill you, tell me your name. Quote. Naruto didn't receive an answer verbally from the man but did from what he was about to do. You shouldn't have followed pain, Kakuzu. And like that, Naruto pulled his hand back with the soul of Kakuzu attached to it. Naruto simply watched the man lifelessly fall to the ground as the black figures that had come from his body destabilized and fell to the earth lifeless. You had multiple hearts that could bring you back in a body that could sustain any physical attack, spoke Naruto, looking down at the man. But we're all given only one soul. Luckily for you, you'll at least have an afterlife, unlike your partner. Continued Naruto as 3 of his tomo vanished from each eye. He was down to 3 now as tears of blood leaked from both eyes. The true Shun Goku erases the body along with the soul, and it still hurts so much to use. I have to take it easy for a while. Naruto stood for a moment before dropping backward. His lion turtle had arrived to catch him, which he could see thanks to their shared vision, as he laid on the back of it. Naruto wiped the blood from his eyes and face before closing them to get some rest. His summoning merely began to walk away from the area per mental orders from its master. Naruto would wake up eventually, and so would Fu. When that happened, he'd ask her to get proper directions regarding returning her home. But for now, sleep. Naruto just wanted to sleep. Konoha. 2 days later. This was getting to be a bit troubling. Naruto hadn't returned yet. That wasn't much of a problem. Naruto could have teleported a far distance away, which could be why he was still gone. No, the real problem was that he hadn't at least sent back a word or anything that he was okay. Even when Jiraiya tried to use a toad to get correspondence, Naruto ignored that call. That was an issue and had the man panicking over the Jinchuriki as he sat atop the Hokage tower looking to the sky. You better be alright, thought Jiraiya nervously, biting his nails. You'll be starting on your actual finger at that pace, you know. Huh. Jiraiya perked up at the voice and turned to see Tsunade standing there smirking at him. Never thought I'd be able to sneak up on you. Your pervy radar not working so well anymore, I see, said Tsunade, watching Jiraiya turn his vision back to the sky. Tsunade frowned at that reaction before deciding to walk up to the man. What's troubling you, Jiraiya? Is it still Naruto? That easy to read? Well, it's the only thing you've been worried about since telling me what happened to him, spoke Tsunade, standing by the rail Jiraiya was sitting atop of to also look out at the sky. And hearing his story, you're worried about him? Yeah, okay. Why? Because he's a kid. He's not just a kid. He's a kid with the most powerful dojutsu in the world and chakra given to him by the Sage of Six Paths himself, said Tsunade, turning her brown eyes to Jiraiya. Her pause got Jiraiya to return her stare before she continued. That kid could probably kick our asses 1-on-2 if he felt the need. Could maybe even take Sensei back in his prime. PFF'd. No one could mess with Sensei in his prime. No one. Naruto could. Nope. Sensei can use every element. Naruto can too. Well, spoke Jiraiya, somehow forgetting that before snapping his fingers. Sensei knows every jutsu in Konoha. Naruto does too. He got Sensei's memories when he gave him chakra, remember? Said Tsunade, reminding Jiraiya that Naruto did know everything Hiruzen did. When he saved the man from Orochimaru and gave him chakra, Hiruzen's memories came with. And with his Rinnegan, Naruto can use them, unlike Sensei, who only knows every jutsu. Kami, that kid isn't even grown yet, and he's already frightening. When you put it like that, you're right. The kid is walking hacks. I know, he's a kid still, though, but he's plenty strong. And that's why, despite his lack of return or communication, you know he's fine, said Tsunade with a smile. At least him, you know. I'd have worried if he didn't make me a believer. The kid kicked my so easily. Tsunade's pride still hurt despite knowing who Naruto was. A loss was still a loss in her book. And he'll kick yours too to show you he's fine. You miss him, is all. And it's wonderful that you're so worried sick about it. It shows you really care, but he'll be back soon. Calling you a pervert per usual. Ha, true, the little brat, laughed Jiraiya, throwing his head back. He nodded to himself before turning a smile to Tsunade. Yeah, you're right. Kid's got me walking around here all worried when I shouldn't be at all. He'll respond as soon as he can. Of course he will. Thanks for that, said Jiraiya with a smile, getting a nod from his teammate. He needed that. He already felt calmer. In the meantime, though, Heim, said Jiraiya with a grin sliding on his face. The man's eyes panned down to his teammate's cleavage that was prominently on display as he giggled mischievously. We haven't properly reintroduced ourselves after all these months. What say you and I? Damn pervert, said Tsunade after decking Jiraiya and sending him flying through the air across Konoha. Tsunade was still smiling and shook her head at his antics. At least you're not gonna worry about Naruto as much being unconscious, continued Tsunade before hearing Naruto's name below. The medic looked and saw a young girl with pale, blonde hair chattering loudly about the boy while rushing into the Hokage's tower. I shouldn't, but I've got nothing better to do until Hiruzen pays me for helping out his shinobi. She seems to know something about Naruto. And with that, Tsunade decided to be nosy. Hokage's office. Hiruzen stood in his office, calmly smoking from his pipe, as he looked out the window to his village below. Ah, I'll never be tired of this sight, spoke Hiruzen aloud, looking at his peaceful village. A smile came to his face seeing the people pass by before a knock came on his door. Come in. The door opened, and in stepped a plain-looking woman with round glasses that she pressed back up her nose. Sandame-sama, a Yamanaka Ino is here, and she says she has urgent news regarding Uzumaki Naruto. Naruto-kun, please, allow her in, spoke Hiruzen as the woman bowed before leaving to get Ino. There hasn't been any word from Naruto since he left for the Nanabi. What could Ino possibly know? Sandame-sama greeted Ino, rushing through the door and breathing heavily. Hiruzen greeted the girl with a smile despite the very urgent look on her face. Where's Naruto-kun? Hello, Ino-chan. And Naruto-kun is on a mission, said Hiruzen, watching the girl deflate. Hiruzen deflated internally, considering he thought Ino might have known where Naruto was. His worry for the boy made him disregard that no one knew where Naruto went since it was so abrupt. Regardless though, Hiruzen had appearances to keep up. Don't worry. He should return soon. Is there something for him? Yes. This guy is sitting outside the village waiting for him, shouted Ino, frantically getting Hiruzen's eyes to widen momentarily. He says he's here to kill him. Asuma-sensei said we couldn't do anything about verbal threats, but what? You have to go out there. You can arrest him or something, right? Hiruzen held Ino's gaze and could see her hoping there was something he could do. He chose to say nothing as he merely emptied his pipe and found his Hokage hat. Dusting it off lightly, the man put it on before turning to the mind reader. Let me go and see what's going on. Can you lead me? Questioned Hiruzen, getting a nod from the girl before she grabbed his hand. Who knew the girl was so strong? She manhandled one of the strongest men in the world like he was nothing. With Naruto. Fuck. One word summed it up pretty simply. Naruto felt weak, and even opening his eyes was quite the chore. Naruto sat up slowly and felt something land in his lap. Looking down, Naruto saw it was a wet piece of clothing that had probably been on his forehead. Thought Naruto, spotting a campfire a little bit away that was currently out. Naruto continued surveying his surroundings to find Fu settled on the other side of the campfire, sleeping soundly. And from his current spot, Naruto realized they were in a cave. Another cave. My damn head. Naruto clutched his head, feeling dizzy, before he shrugged it off and began to stand. Naruto cautiously stepped over Fu, moved to the cave entrance, and knew where he was. He remembered it exactly from Kakuzu's memories that he took when he ripped out the man's soul. If this is correct then, said Naruto, dropping down the 30 feet of the cave to the earth below. Naruto saw what he already saw in his head. His turtle lion was still out and about and looked at him when he landed before it. Hi, buddy. Anything go wrong? Naruto petted the animal lightly on the head, getting it to nestle into his touch. Naruto smiled before dispelling it back to where it came. And once the smoke cleared from it dispelling, Naruto could see a brush of foliage that didn't match the greenery around it. Walking by it, no one would ever notice. Naruto did because he had Kakuzu's memories. Damatsu guiding destruction, said Naruto, holding out a palm to the different patch of grass to pull it up with his gravity powers. The patch drifted to his palm as Naruto smiled, seeing a safe was underneath. A clone popped into existence next to Naruto as he looked at it. You know the code and where the traps are, right? The clone nodded with a smile as Naruto nodded back. Make sure it is still 12,740,093,800 ryo like Kakuzu counted last time he was here. Gotcha, boss, said the clone, walking over to the safe before turning the cylinder lock to get to work. Naruto then jumped back to the cave entrance from earlier and turned his eyes to the still sleeping Fu. He didn't want to disturb her, but he had a few questions. So, Naruto walked over to the tan-skinned girl and kneeled beside her. Hey, shouted Fu, snapping awake before looking around frantically. Ouch. Fu looked toward the noise to see Naruto lying next to her while holding his gut. Why was he holding his stomach like that? Then Fu looked over to see her fist outstretched and realized what had happened. Oh, I'm so sorry, Naruto-san. I was startled. I noticed, said Naruto weakly, showing how bad that punch hurt. Fu then latched both hands on either side of Naruto's face and scrutinized it from up close. A mild blush tinted Naruto's cheeks as he just looked at her. Are you okay? Yes, are you okay? Yes, I feel weak, but nothing time won't heal. You sure? You had me worried. Really? You've been out for 2 days. Fu knew better and was very prepared for Naruto's outburst. So she didn't even react to the shout from the Rinnegan user. 2 days? Shrieked Naruto loudly, getting Fu to nod her head to confirm it. 2 days? This body, the Shin-shun put me out for 2 days. Thought Naruto, looking down at that knowledge. He tried the Rinne rebirth but was stopped by Hagoromo, the physical tax it took to use techniques, and how Kurama and Shukaku looked at him. It was more and more evident. I'm not Hagoromo. I've never been. I've always been Naruto. Kami, I'm an idiot. Hagoromo's memories were in his head. Well, so were 2 members of the Sound Four, Hiruzen and Kakuzu. He didn't magically become them after that. Naruto was still Naruto, so it should be the same with Hagoromo. He was Naruto, Uzumaki Naruto. Always had been and always will be, memories be damned. Who's Hagoromo? Questioned Fu, getting Naruto to look at her with an eased expression. Don't worry about it. It's just a name, said Naruto, placing his hands on Fu's wrists to remove her hands from his cheeks. Naruto stood while pulling Fu up to stand with him. I'm sorry for making you worry, but I'll be fine now. I promise. Okay. I'm glad, said Fu as Naruto patted her hands before turning around. Fu couldn't help but notice something weird. Did he grow a couple of inches? He's taller now. Now, I don't know about you, but I need a bathroom and my bed, spoke Naruto, stepping to the cave entrance with Fu stepping up beside him. Chikushoto. Now, let's get you home. In a poof of smoke, Naruto's Tengu was summoned and stood tall as the cave despite its feet touching the ground 30 feet below. Naruto patted the animal's beak before cringing at the loud shout from Fu. No, I don't want to go back there, shouted Fu, getting Naruto to turn to her. The girl was trembling as she shook her head vehemently. Please, anywhere but there. Why not? Asked Naruto with concern. Fu looked down, unwilling to tell him, as Naruto walked before her and held out a palm. Can I see for myself? Fu looked at him to see concern and a bit of hidden fury on his face. Naruto had saved her once with no provocation to do so. Maybe he could do it again if she just told him. But she wouldn't use words. He could dig for it himself. Ninjendo, said Naruto holding Fu's hand and closing his eyes. A second passed before his eyes snapped open and he nodded. We don't have to go there. We won't go there, continued Naruto before looking at the girl with sorrow-filled eyes. I'm sorry for what happened to you, but never again. Never again. We'll go to Konoha for now. Hokage Gigi will know how to handle this. Fu nodded her head since that was where Naruto would also be going. She was going to stay with him for a while. He would make sure everything went right from here on out. It's what her Biju, Chome, said when Naruto left the Biju plain to face Akatsuki. And with that, the two of them set sail on his Tengu back to Konoha. Several hours later, flying atop Naruto's Tengu, the travel back to Konoha wasn't long at all as it touched down a few miles outside of the village before dispelling. From there, Naruto teleported with Fu to the Hokage's office. You have a visitor, Naruto-kun. Questioned Naruto turning to see Hiruzen looking at him upon his arrival. Naruto raised an eyebrow and looked at the currently asleep Fu in his arms held bridal style. How did you know I had a visitor? I didn't mean the Nanabi Jinchuriki, said Hiruzen recognizing the girl. Naruto-kun said Chome was the Nanabi. Of course, he would return with the Nanabi Jinchuriki, thought Hiruzen before also realizing something. Naruto was here. And my boy, you're back. You had us worried. I'll explain later, but you said I had a visitor. Questioned Naruto looking at his cage. Yes, he's at the west gate, said Hiruzen getting Naruto to nod. He's here to kill you. Continued the cage getting Naruto's eyes to widen. If Naruto's visitor was here to kill him and Hiruzen knew about it, why was he allowing that person to sit so close to home? It's something you'll have to handle. I was going to, but it's something you should do. Okay, Gigi, also, said Naruto setting Fu down on the couch in the office. Naruto then turned back to Hiruzen and looked him in the eyes. It's later. A quick Rinnegan stare sent Hiruzen on a trip. Naruto's initial teleport to the cave where Akatsuki was extracting the Biju, halting the process and saving the Jinchuriki girl. Hiruzen could see it all. His threat to the leader of Akatsuki to his face, the fight with the two Akatsuki members, passing out for 2 days, the extreme funds of Kakuzu, and finally the memories the Nanabi Jinchuriki had that were prevalent to her in her home of Takigakure. Wow, said Hiruzen shook at that sequence of memories that had come all in a second. He shrugged off the drawbacks impressively before looking back at Naruto. Thank you. I'll handle it from here, continued the cage as he looked at Fu. Especially her. I can't believe Taki would do that. Just give her away because of the threat of 2 men. They didn't even ask us for help. You're on it, right? Of course, my boy. I will handle it, said Hiruzen with a smile. He patted Naruto on the head before raising an eyebrow. You've gotten taller again. A little bit. Going to catch me soon, but, said the old man before patting Naruto on the back. Please go to the west gate if you would. Hi. said Naruto, taking one last look at Fu before vanishing. Naruto arrived at the west gate instantly and looked to see 5 figures there. Shikamaru, Choji, Ino, and Asuma-san. They're here, and who's that? The who Naruto was referring to was a teenager, from the looks of it, about 3 years older than he was. He had pale skin, vivid green eyes, 2 scarlet dots on his forehead, and shoulder-length white hair. And Naruto could tell he was from Otogakure based on his outfit. A specialized version of the Oto Nin ensemble, consisting of a light lavender, loose-fitting, long-sleeved, zip-up shirt, black pants cut off around mid-calf, and a purple, rope-like belt tied in an inverted bow around his waist. Kagaya Kimimaro. The white-haired teen perked up along with Team Asuma at the name and turned to see Naruto standing there. Ino was the first to react upon seeing him. Naruto-kun, you're back, shouted Ino, getting a smile from Naruto at her excitement before she realized that his Rinnegan was out and that everyone could see. She rushed him and cradled him in a hug to hide that from everyone else. With a whisper, she spoke to him. Your eyes, Naruto-kun, there's only 3 Tomo now. Are you okay? Naruto smiled even more at Ino's attempt to keep his Rinnegan hidden from her teammates and the Oto ninja. A lot different from the girl trying to expose him less than a fortnight ago. It even tugged at his heartstrings that she noticed the lack of Tomo in his eyes too. Naruto just calmly removed her from him before shaking his head amusedly. It's fine, and I am fine. I promise. Also, I'm quite certain that the news of my Rinnegan will spread like wildfire in the coming days since an enemy of mine has noticed them, said Naruto, thankful that Ino at least was considerate of his desire to keep them hidden. But, if the story was going to get out anyway, Naruto figured he wanted to tell some people at least before they read about it in the papers. So he did that as he looked at the remainder of Team Asuma. So, yeah, I have the Rinnegan. Ino-chan wasn't lying back then. Shikamaru, Choji, and Asuma all stood stunned at the casual admission from Naruto. Especially considering they could see his currently 3 Tomo Rinnegan looking right back at them to confirm what he was saying. Nah, Naruto, stammered Asuma as the cigarette he'd been smoking fell out of his mouth. Yeah, crazy, right? It's a nice story that I'll tell once I get a few more people together, so I don't have to repeat it, said Naruto before turning to the white-haired teen from Oto. Naruto knew who this was from Sakin's memories. Kagaya Kimimaro, I'm guessing you're here to see me for what happened to Orochimaru. You're Uzumaki Naruto? Questioned Kimimaro, looking at Naruto with a bored expression. He could feel the power radiating from the boy's eyes, but his stature had him curious. Kabuto returned without Orochimaru-sama and said, Uzumaki Naruto of Konoha. Killed him, not the Sandame, but, he's just a kid, thought Kimimaro, watching Naruto nod to confirm he was him. Is this a joke? Where is the real Uzumaki Naruto? The one that killed Orochimaru-sama. He is I, said Naruto before the Tomo in his eyes orbited his pupils and trapped everyone in the area in a flashback. They were all subjected to Naruto entering the fight between Orochimaru and the Sandame, Naruto handling the Edo Tensei summonings of Hashirama and Tobirama, and lastly, to him destroying Orochimaru's soul. The 5 all returned from the visions and were visibly shaken by what they saw. Do you believe me now? I am Uzumaki Naruto, and yes, I killed your master. Kimimaro was visibly breathing heavily from the memories he had viewed. It had felt like he'd done everything that Naruto did. He could feel it all and was even the one to complete the Shungoku Satsu that ended his master's life. It enraged him, and now, the cause of his anger and current loss was standing right before him. Naruto would pay for this. I'll kill him right now. You wouldn't survive, said Naruto, getting Kimimaro to stop his lunging at him before he could even try it. Kimimaro just stared at Naruto to see sorrow-filled eyes looking back. Seriously, you wouldn't survive. Even if you wanted to attack me, you can't move a muscle. Continued Naruto as Kimimaro looked down to see his shadow was connected to Shikamaru's. He'd forgotten that Naruto had 4 comrades there, and all of them looked ready to handle any aggressive action from him. I'm sorry that I took your master. I don't know what he meant to you. I acted in defense of my loved one without considering that Orochimaru also had those who loved him in return. So, I'm sorry for taking him away from you. Kimimaro focused his green eyes on Naruto as he watched the boy walk up to him. He believed Naruto's apology was genuine and didn't stop him from touching his chest. Orochimaru still lives within you, right here, said Naruto, alluding to the curse mark settled on the boy's chest. But, his essence isn't something I can allow to continue thriving in this world, continued Naruto, pulling out the remnants of Orochimaru from Kimimaro before the King of Hell spawned behind the Oto ninja. Naruto tossed the soul within before returning his palm to Kimimaro. If you wish to hate me, I understand. At least allow me to do this for you. In the same sequence as last time, Naruto moved his palm from Kimimaro, only this time, he had Kimimaro's soul attached. The boy's lifeless body stood before him until the King of Hell extended its tongue to snatch the body away into its mouth. Chewing a few times, the King of Hell opened its mouth again before Naruto tossed Kimimaro's soul back to his body. What was that? Thought Kimimaro, feeling like he'd died, but he couldn't feel any time had passed either. It was weird, but even more bizarre was how he felt. My body. Wait, did you heal me? Yes, your terminal illness is gone, said Naruto, watching Kimimaro step out of the King of Hell's mouth and test his body. The King of Hell slowly descended into the ground as Naruto closed his eyes and sighed. I know not of your past to the fullest extent. I do know that you're a ninja and that you've followed Orochimaru's orders. But Orochimaru is no longer here, and you don't give any inclination of malicious intent like Tayuya-chan didn't. Otherwise, the King of Hell would have kept your body, continued Naruto before simply turning away. If you still want to kill me, then find a better opportunity. But, I stole your master's life, so I figured the least I could do is allow you the chance to keep yours. Naruto-kun, said Ino, watching him begin to walk back to Konoha. Thank you, Asuma-san, Shika, Choji, and Ino-chan. I appreciate you all being here and worrying about me. It is no longer necessary, said Naruto, continuing his gait to Konoha. The team of 4 started following him, with Asuma keeping his eyes on Kimimaro's stagnant frame. I hope to see you again someday, Kimimaro. Hopefully, a more pleasant meeting. Naruto continued to Konoha as Asuma watched Kimimaro nod before turning away from Konoha and walking away slowly. Asuma could feel the two of them would meet again. I hope that doesn't come back to bite you on the, thought Asuma before fully turning to follow the 4 teens back home. His eyes were mainly on Naruto. And I hope you explain what happened to you soon too. You've got the Rinnegan. I thought that was just a fable Dad told to help me get to sleep. Since she knew, all of Team Asuma, sans Ino, watched Naruto and couldn't wait to hear his story. It was sure to be good. Naruto's home. In an instant, Naruto arrived home right in his bathroom after bidding Team Asuma adieu. Cranking the shower on, Naruto quickly stripped before stepping right on in. I need a new place. Water still runs cold, thought Naruto, scrubbing himself clean as quickly as possible. Honestly, he didn't even give the shower a chance to get to its lukewarm status like normal, but it wasn't steaming hot as it should be. And that needed to get rectified soon. A quick rinse after soaping up, Naruto turned the cold water off before drying off with a towel. His pajamas on, which consisted of his toed cap, toed shorts, and a white shirt, Naruto stepped out of his bathroom and plummeted on his bed unceremoniously. Oh, how he missed his bed. And oh, how he needed some sleep. He was going to get sleep regardless of the hand currently mushing his face and foot trying to kick him off his bed. Oi, Sunflower, what the fuck are you doing? Shouted Tayuya, having been in the bed sound asleep until Naruto plopped down on it. She then realized that Naruto was also trying to sleep with her, and she wasn't having it. Get the fuck up. I was already here. To Yuya-chan, please, said Naruto, turning his Rinnegan to her and getting her to freeze at the killing intent he was leaking out. This is my bed, my apartment, my home. I am going to sleep in my bed. I don't care if you're also here because I'm likely not moving from this spot with how tired I am, continued Naruto, turning the killing intent off when he realized he might be scaring the girl. Naruto turned his face away from her before closing his very heavy eyes. I have Akatsuki stuff, Oto stuff, Fu stuff, explaining stuff, and a lot of other stuff I don't know of yet to handle starting tomorrow. But today isn't tomorrow, so I'm going to sleep. Please don't disturb me. Tayuya sat on the other side of Naruto's bed and watched him casually drift off to sleep in less than 10 seconds after speaking. A minute passed before Tayuya realized he was genuinely out for real before she narrowed her eyes. I don't care. Wake up, shouted Tayuya, nudging Naruto and not getting a response. Your bed ain't big enough for both of us. And I was here first. I'm not moving, continued Tayuya, flopping back down on the bed and stealing all the covers. She huffed and settled down before turning to see Naruto still had yet to move. And who the fuck is Fu? Wake up, you stupid runt. I know you hear me. Wake the fuck up. Tayuya could and would keep trying until she could push no more, but Naruto was out. And he wouldn't be waking up until morning came. Tomorrow would be such fun, but for today, Naruto would rest. He did need it. Quote. It's weird that the word, fuck, can sum up any bad situation. Used a Rinnegan technique that weakened your vitality and put you in a coma for 2 days. Fuck. Hearing the constant chanting of your name at 7 in the morning after a long set of days. It was the perfect word for bad situations. At least these days, according to Kurama's Jinchuriki. Naruto blearily opened his eyes and blinked several times at the constant, Naruto-sama, coming from all around him. It was so loud, and it made sense considering Naruto could feel at least 200 people were out there chanting in sync. The Rinnegan news spread more like sunlight than a wildfire because this was way too fast for the word to get out and have people this crazy. It was getting more annoying to keep hearing his name, but Naruto had patience. Hagoromo's memories helped with that since he'd lived through times like this. So yes, Naruto was patient and didn't even get higher than a mild irritation at what was going on. But Naruto wasn't the only one having to hear the chanting. The other person wasn't as patient as Naruto. And they let their agitation be known. For Sake, shut them up. Naruto's eyes snapped wide at that angry shout for 2 reasons. 1, Tayuya yelled it, and the sudden noise shocked the system. And 2, the person yelling it happened to be lying next to him with their mouth right by his ear. I'll do it myself, said Tayuya, sitting up quickly. Tayuya reached over Naruto to grab her flute before sitting up on her knees and bringing the flute to her mouth. A beautiful tune emitted from the flute as Naruto could see it was a genjutsu. A feeble one because Naruto didn't even have to dispel it. Naruto could fight off its effects even before he had the Rinnegan. It wasn't meant for him. It was for the 200 plus people outside that Naruto could feel were slowly but surely falling asleep. The people outside are civilians. They can't fight this genjutsu even if it is weak, thought Naruto, hearing the chanting get lower and lower until it was non-existent. Dumbasses. He's not a god just because of some stupid eyes, said Tayuya, dropping her head right back on the mattress with a thud and keeping her flute handy in case they started back up. Taiyu, shut the up, shouted Tayuya before calming back down and speaking quietly. He wasn't the issue, so she didn't mean to yell, but she still wanted silence. I stayed up trying to get your dumbass off the bed and haven't got much sleep. I need some sleep. But, shut up. What Tayuya didn't know or care about was what Naruto did know and care about very much. When Tayuya first awoke, she and Naruto merely slept side by side. The only way possible on his little bed. Well, Tayuya had to reach over Naruto to get to her flute, and by doing so, she ended up straddling him in the process. She never unstraddled him when she slammed her head back down on the bed, which meant she was entirely on him. Did Naruto ever tell you that Tayuya was hot? Because if he hadn't made it obvious before, he wanted it to be known that Tayuya was very hot. The movie always ends the same way, with a hot girl plus teen boy multiplied by intimate position. And Tayuya felt that ending prod against her. Quote. Stop talking. Naruto cared as he teleported out of there and right into a cold shower. He didn't have time for this. He knew Tayuya cared, and she'd likely kick his later when she had the energy because he stayed longer than he should have. Curse his curiosity as a growing boy and how nice she felt using him as a pillow. His inevitable beating would have been way worse had he stayed and tried to enjoy what was happening. So, he quickly dismissed himself to the bathroom to get started with his day. He had a lot of things to get to today. One of those things was Tayuya eventually because of the Odo thing, but he'd save that for much later. He'd let her get her sleep now as he got ready to leave and begin handling some of the things on his list. Sometime later. Hello, Naruto-sama. Please shake my hand, Naruto-sama. Look at them. They're there, the Rinnegan. Have my baby. Here are some flowers. Naruto walked through Konoha, and his patience was slowly waning. Much like his sanity. A month ago and every day that preceded it, he'd been ignored for the most part by the residents who called Konoha home. A week or so ago, he had a few people cheering him for his performance in the Chunin exam and his known defeat of the Aikibi. Now, he was more popular than the man who'd lead them as their kage for over 4 decades. It was becoming a bit too much for the Jinchuriki to handle. Okay, Hagoromo didn't go through this at 13. And the person who asked me to have their baby was a dude, thought Naruto internally while keeping a smile and shaking hands as he slowly made his way to the Hokage's office to speak. Even if I rolled that way, that's not possible. Surrogate could happen, but whatever, it doesn't matter. That won't happen, and this will die down. Hopefully, sooner than later. Naruto eventually did make it to his destination despite the constant and massive wave of people impeding him on his journey. He smiled and waved until the doors closed, and he was finally safe inside the building. Quote. The perfect word for bad situations showed itself again. Naruto took a calming breath now that he was temporarily free before looking to the greeter seated at the entrance of the Hokage's tower. Hey, crazy traffic today, isn't it? Not for me, I had an easy time getting here, spoke the old woman with closed eyes and a smile on her face. Naruto frowned, hearing the snarky reply, and shook his head before making his way upstairs to Hiruzen's office. Have a good day, Naruto-kun. Thank you, Ba-chan. Shouted back Naruto, giving her a quick smile before getting to where he needed to be at the moment. He was glad she didn't call him Sama, like everyone else. He was still just Naruto. Walking through the doors after greeting the Hokage's secretary, Naruto saw Hiruzen, decked out in Hokage garbs, smiling at him. Yo Gigi. Good morning. Hello, Naruto-sama, said Hiruzen, getting Naruto to frown at hearing that from the old man. Hiruzen immediately put up placating hands. I'm just playing Naruto-kun, but Yamanaka Ino told me to tell you that payback's well, I'm sure you know how that phrase ends. Ino-chan, payback's no. There's no way. Thought Naruto, realizing what was going on. If the news of his Rinnegan was supposed to spread like wildfire, then Ino became gasoline that got it going. She must have told everyone herself, and that's why people were outside my door this morning and crazy already. Naruto began to laugh, remembering Ino said she'd be getting him back. Even if it was inadvertently this good, it was still intended, and it got Naruto to laugh a bit harder. I'm so going to get revenge. Oh, yes, I am. Hiruzen stood watching Naruto and began to laugh nervously when Naruto's laughter started to turn downright sinister. Ino did indeed go out and spread the news of Naruto's Rinnegan yesterday while the boy slept. Pretty impressive how she managed to get all the information to everyone in Konoha so fast. The girl had talent. But she forgot one thing. Naruto was the undisputed prank king. The boy had no equal. Naruto painted the Hokage monument in broad daylight and didn't get caught until finished. The scary thing was, he did that before he had the Rinnegan. What the hell would he do now? Yamanaka Ino's shoulder chose to twitch very harshly at that moment, which she found odd for its randomness. Naruto-kun, you have a big day ahead of you, said Hiruzen, getting Naruto to stop scaring him with his villainous guffawing. Right. Should be fun, I hope, spoke Naruto, looking at the old cage with a grin and thumbs up. I'm guessing you already got stuff started. I have. Follow me if you would. Naruto did as requested. They walked for a while before stepping through a door Naruto recognized as the large conference room. Within, Chunin and Jonin level shinobi of Konoha sat and talked until Hiruzen and Naruto opened the door. They all bowed to their leader before turning their eyes to Naruto, who awkwardly waved at being the center of attention. Sup everybody, said Naruto, getting a few waves and a couple of sups right back. Naruto then scanned the room and saw some familiar faces. The genin in my class who all graduated are here too. Ino's smirking. Thought Naruto, smirking back, which got Ino's shoulder to twitch again. Yes, I will be getting revenge. Don't you worry your pretty little head. Wait, I can hear him. Questioned Ino as Naruto smiled. Can you hear me? No, I can't, Ino-chan. The mind reader grimaced. She put together the earlier twitch, figuring that Naruto first learned what she did. And now she could feel the revenge he'd get would be deadly based on his ominous smirk. She shouldn't have played back. Naruto smiled, seeing she realized that before looking at Hiruzen. The man merely motioned him to start, so Naruto turned to the shinobi gathered. I don't know where to begin, so, any questions? A wave of hands rose from just about everyone in attendance as Naruto chuckled nervously. Naruto settled on the first hand he saw raise and pointed to the man. How did you get the Rinnegan? The chakra given to me by the Sage of Six Paths when I was a baby was allowed to flow through my body, and bam, Rinnegan, said Naruto, watching a few hands drop, probably because that was their question too. Naruto picked a random shinobi first because he didn't want to come off biased when he chose someone he knew, like Kakashi-sensei. You picked Scarecrow because you're biased. Naruto frowned because he turned to see the purple-haired woman from the second test in the Chunin exam smirking at him. You can go first, Anko, said Kakashi, getting a smile from the woman before looking at Naruto. Can you remove this shit? Questioned Anko, getting Naruto's eyes to widen when she slid her shirt down her shoulder to reveal a curse mark. She had one too. She was Orochimaru's first student. Thought Naruto, walking over to Anko before putting a palm to her curse mark for a second. Naruto pulled back, and the mark was gone. Yes, I can. Anko blinked at the speed, looked down, and saw nothing but clear skin. Anko had a tear come to her eye before she turned back to Naruto, who'd already resettled at the front of the room. Kid, I owe you one. Thank you. Think nothing of it, seriously, said Naruto before looking back at Kakashi. What can your eyes do? Everything we know about the Rinnegan was thought to be just fairy tales of the Sage of Six Paths. The things you hear in those fairy tales are all things I can do or will be able to do with my Rinnegan sensei, confirmed Naruto, getting Kakashi's lone eye to widen at that. Kakashi just nodded his head before returning to the book he was reading. His student satiated his curiosity. Naruto turned and pointed at another random shinobi he'd never met before. Yes. Can you demonstrate some of it for those of us that don't know about those fairy tales? Yes, but this is easier, said Naruto before simply showing everyone a memory. The memory was of him performing a few techniques atop the mountain during the finals of the Chunin exams. He didn't show that he had been demonstrating all of that to Ino. That'd open up another question that didn't need to be asked nor mattered at the moment. He also didn't show all he could do either. His secrets were his own. He pointed to another shinobi, allowing them to ask their question after the memory ended. Yes. How strong are you? How strong? Well, strength is quantifiable but can be answered relevantly too. Things like lifting this weight or withstanding this much force are quantifiable strengths. And that's something I can't give you because I haven't found out for myself yet, said Naruto sagely before gesturing to Hiruzen. Relevant strength, I can tell you. Gigi is the strongest one here, and I could beat him if we were to fight. An uproar started at that statement from Naruto. Many in the room thought it to be bold. The only ones that didn't have seen Naruto do the things he'd done or knew that Naruto's Rinnegan made him nigh impossible to beat. Hiruzen smiled before speaking up to add his 2 cents. Naruto-kun could best me in a fight, no question asked, said Hiruzen, getting everyone to calm down at his casual admission of inferiority. Probably a weird thing to hear from your leader, but it's no debate. Naruto-kun is stronger than me. Which doesn't mean anything, by the way. I'm not saying I should be Hokage because I can defeat the strongest man here, said Naruto, getting everyone to look back at him as he spoke. He was thankful that Hiruzen spoke up himself to keep people from disregarding his words as illusions of grandeur. He didn't need that, especially when it was just the truth. Just because the rook is the strongest piece in shogi doesn't make it the most important, nor does it lead. Gigi is Hokage. Trust me, I'm just a kid. I don't want to lead all of you, yet, continued Naruto, getting a few smiles at his, yet. He was aiming for Hokage still, and it made people happy because that meant he wanted to be of Konoha. Naruto then turned to one of his friends and pointed to someone he hadn't spoken to since his first prelim fight. Sasuke. Can you teach me those things you showed in that memory? Yes. Yes, confirmed Naruto, getting Sasuke to nod. Naruto then looked to the people in the room and decided to quell any other question that followed that train of thought. And if you can find me, I might be able to teach you something too. Don't hold your breath. Sasuke Tem has hacks with his eyes. That got a lot of people to nod because what Naruto did atop that mountain was crazy cool. Some of the Chunin ninjas in attendance were itching for maybe a moment with the boy. And also, thanks, said Sasuke, having noticed his curse mark was gone just like Anko's. He'd wondered what happened to it but figured Naruto must have taken it when he was unconscious in the hospital. Despite the power gain, that thing was poisonous, and Sasuke was good to be rid of it before he became addicted. Naruto just shrugged because it was no issue before pointing to the next man, another one he recognized from the Chunin exams. Yo, I don't have a question anymore, said Genma, twirling his signature Senbon around before smirking. Just wanted to let you know that cereal is technically soup. The room was silent for a very slow 5 seconds. No one said a word, and no one even moved during that period. Naruto cracked first as his lips curled upward, throwing his head back in laughter. Cereal is technically soup. What kind of timing was that, Genma? Shouted a man with an interesting scar over his nose as everyone in attendance shook their head. They remembered Naruto asking Genma that question during the first match of the Chunin exam finals, and as he promised, Genma said he'd let Naruto know what his answer was after it was over. Genma's smirk deepened, seeing Naruto hold his stomach and begin to tear up laughing at what he said. It was all the gratification he needed despite everyone else thinking it was ill-advised. Since you added milk to the bowl, theorized Kakashi, face still in his book, getting everyone to look at him. Does that make it a beverage, a broth, or a sauce? Naruto stopped laughing at that and looked over to his sensei and contemplated the question. He hadn't thought about possible other things that combination would technically be outside of what most people called it. It got Naruto thinking. If the milk itself is a drink, then that means, well, if the... Why are we all thinking about this? We're supposed to be asking Naruto questions, not doing whatever this is. Excellent point. Naruto-kun doesn't have much time, nor do we during this meeting I called. Please, Ask as many questions as you can because we all have a day to get to, said Hiruzen, getting everyone back on track as the questions came flying back at Naruto. He answered every single one they could get to in the time allotted. But alas, everyone had things to do. Naruto has quite a few. Unknown location. Pain, the orange-haired path, stood in a darkened area with a woman standing next to him. She had blue hair and beautiful amber eyes as she looked at him with concern. It's been 3 days since you told him, and he hasn't returned. No, Conan, Madara hasn't returned. He didn't even speak after I informed him of the news, said Pain, looking back at the woman with his usually emotionless face. Not even Zetsu has returned. Does this news trouble them that much? It could be possible. The Rinnegan is quite the power. You know that better than anyone, said Conan, getting Pain to nod his head before he narrowed his eyes. What's wrong? What the boy said. How his eyes were better integrated than mine, said Pain, looking down at his hands and clenching his fists. He's right. His eyes are more powerful than mine. I couldn't stop him from stopping me when I should have been able to. Continued Pain, getting Conan to nod, remembering how casual Naruto stopped the extraction. And then he said that his eyes had been given to him, same as me. Does that mean that these eyes weren't originally mine? Well, that was the thought of the day. Naruto had no reason to lie, and Pain knew Naruto could see things with his Rinnegan that most people would never be able to. The inner chakra gates, invisible barriers, or even foreign entities within someone's body. It was all revealed to the Rinnegan, and that last thing was something Pain never checked himself. You couldn't look at your own eyes directly. A mirror wouldn't tell you the actual story. He could use a path to confirm what Naruto said by looking at him. But he was hesitant. He didn't want Naruto to be correct. So unless Naruto was saying that to mess with Pain's head, that meant it was true because Naruto knew Pain could check himself. And if it was true, whose eyes did Pain have in his head? This opened up a can of worms that Pain didn't want to dig through to find the answer. We need to find that boy soon. We've spread the news of his Rinnegan already. The world will be searching high and low for him and giving us his location constantly by proxy, said Conan, looking at the powerful eyes in her partner's head. She could feel his anxiety and did her best to quell it. He'll soon be somewhere we can get to him easily. It's only a matter of time. Pain just nodded. He needed to beat Naruto as soon as possible. He couldn't give the boy time to grow, or else it'd be even more hopeless of defeating him. Konoha. Same time. He does have the Rinnegan. A thought said aloud by a figure standing atop the head of the Yondaime Hokage's stone head. A figure who donned the outfit of Akatsuki and had an intriguing orange mask on his face. He stood looking down through the one eye hole in his mask at the yellow-haired boy he was speaking about. Uzumaki Naruto, I am not sure how you obtained those eyes, spoke the man, watching Naruto look out the window of the Hokage's office to look at the many citizens who'd gathered outside the window. He watched Naruto wave at their cheers before he shook his head. It is no concern. Pain has the Rinnegan and can be defeated. It's all a matter of discovering your weaknesses. When I do, I'll rip the Kyuubi from your body and complete my plan. And with his piece said after confirming it for himself, the man slowly began to disappear into a vortex that formed on his body. Naruto was busy waving at the civilians when he perked up and turned his eyes to his father's stone head. He could have sworn he saw the air distorting for a moment and felt a foreign and powerful chakra, but maybe the Jinchuriki saw things because he blinked and nothing was there. They'll get used to you in no time, Naruto-kun. Don't you worry, said Hiruzen, walking into his office finally as Naruto turned to see him. They were the same to me when I became the Hokage, and eventually, it simmered down. It's no problem. Hagoromo's memories had him go through the same in his day, informed Naruto, stepping back around the desk properly as Hiruzen took his usual spot. This is nothing in comparison. At least, for now. At least for now indeed, but I have faith you'll handle it well. You have been doing so thus far, said Hiruzen, getting Naruto to smile at the compliment. Naruto had been handling his new situation admirably, but they still had some business to handle. And while you can deal with it somewhat easier than I did, I believe you said you could help me with Fu's situation, correct? In a way, I can let you speak with Taki's leader now rather than send a messenger and wait for them to respond. How can you do that? Remember how I talked with the Rinnegan user back in that cave? Questioned Naruto, getting a nod from Hiruzen. He remembered the flashback Naruto showed him yesterday. Well, we can do the same with Taki. It's about the easiest thing I'll do all day. Really? That's quite the ability. I'm guessing you'll at least need the coordinates for Takigakure to project me there, said Hiruzen with a smile, only to see Naruto frown. I already know the coordinates. Huh, how? Takigakure is a very secretive village. Their location is one of their most guarded secrets. I read Fu's mind. Oh, right, forgot about that. Silly me. I knew you were getting old, Gigi, but man. I am getting old, sadly. Something I'm reminded of every day I wake up and hear my bones creak, said Hiruzen with a smile. It was good to get old. It meant he'd lived a good life and got to see a plethora of things because of it. But don't think I don't know you also schemed that information from my memories, Naruto-kun. I've been trying to let you say it yourself, but enough is enough, I suppose. Naruto's eyes widened as he saw a shine come to the man's old eyes. I mean, yeah, but like, you know. I didn't mean to take your memories, Gigi. It just kind of happened. No, it didn't. I'm sorry, apologized Naruto, waving his hands in front of his face. Having just stated he could defeat Hiruzen in a fight meant nothing to him now, as he was cowering in fear. The same thing happened with Hagoromo when he gave me chakra. It just kind of happened. True, except, you gave me chakra, and I didn't receive memories. I had mine stolen instead. Hey. Naruto had nothing to say as he looked like a kid who'd been caught doing something terrible by their parent, which worked in this scenario since he was a kid and Hiruzen was practically his legal guardian. I didn't mean to. It just was there, and I wasn't sure if I still wanted to be a part of Konoha. And then I saw my chance with you, admitted Naruto with his head down. He shook it because it was an unfair thing to do. You're the bridge between the beginning of Konoha and to me now, you've seen it all. You would know if Konoha had a shady past or were not aligned with my future goals. So, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. It just happened. I understand, my boy. I'd have done the same given the circumstances, said Hiruzen offhandedly, getting Naruto to look up at him with wide eyes. Hiruzen knew Naruto wouldn't tell anything he wasn't supposed to. And the cage could see the boy did it just to confirm that Konoha was somewhere he wouldn't mind keeping his allegiance to. Naruto knew how powerful his Rinnegan was, and he wouldn't allow its use to be for the wrong people, which was why Hiruzen called the handling of his new abilities admirable. Hiruzen's memories were second to none in finding out all there was to Konoha, so Naruto took his chance. Not by force, merely by convenience, and without Hiruzen being any the wiser until later on. As Hiruzen knew, Konoha had some bad, but the good far outweighed it, and Naruto was thankful that the older man was who Naruto had looked up to for so many years. Naruto was also grateful that Konoha was too. Naruto let out a breath he didn't know he was holding when Hiruzen seemed okay with the invasion of privacy. Sure, Naruto could beat Hiruzen in a fight, but you still didn't want to tangle with the man because you wouldn't come out of the fight the same way. Naruto also didn't want to ruin his relationship with his soul guardian for his actions either. Hiruzen merely kept the ball rolling and didn't acknowledge it further as he put on his game face. I'm ready now if you want to begin. Hi. Gentoshin, magic lantern body. In a small wooden hut with the sign for Taki written above its entrance, a man with black eyes and long, dark brown hair stood in the very Spartan interior of the hut. He had a shinobi headband with the symbol of Takigakure inscribed on it as he sat meditating. It's been a while since I was last here. The man was shocked when he heard a voice. He didn't even hear anybody enter. When he looked up, All he saw was a rainbow-colored hologram of what looked like the Sandaime Hokage staring back at him. A stare that didn't seem like he was happy to see him. Hello Shibuki-kun, it's a pleasure to see you again. So grown up this time. Hirazendono, is that you? Questioned Shibuki, getting the hologram to nod. What brings you? And how are you here?